It's time to prepare GlobalMantics for multicast LDP transport by configuring the root node, then enabling the default MDT in the customer VRF. For variety, this time we'll start on iOS XR. I've displayed the multicast routing configuration on XRv11, and there are a few changes from last time. First, I've enabled PIM on loopback 0 in the global routing table, but not any other interfaces. Also, we've configured the mLDP root node as CSR7. Choosing a centrally located node is usually a good design choice. Note that you could simply say MDT default and specify a multicast group to enable profile 0 in XR. To differentiate MDTs, you must specify a unique VPN ID. This is kind of like a BGP route distinguisher, but is specific to mLDP. In both XR and XE, this goes under the VRF. XR has another step, which is a bit tricky. Let's examine the router PIM configuration to explore it. Within the customer VRF, XR must explicitly identify which technology to use for RPF. When using Profile 0, you can safely skip this step because PIM is the default. For other profiles, you need to be explicit, so let's examine this policy. The callout shows all of the different options available, and since I've already convinced you that there are many MVPN options, we won't cover all of them. Since we are using mLDP to construct a default MDT, that's the option we'll pick. We'll use the Set Core Tree option to make our selection within the route policy. Interestingly, there is no special configuration required on CSR7, the mLDP route. You just have to configure the route consistently on all of the PEs. You can use the command shown to confirm that the route is reachable. XRv11 identifies CSR7 as the route and has an IGP path cost of 20 to reach it. The RPF next hop towards the route is CSR5, and there is a valid LDP neighbor with that peer. Let's head to CSR2 to examine the XE configuration. Similar to XR, we identify the VPN ID along with the mLDP default MDT route address. Remember that we don't need the IPv4 MDT BGP address family for this MVPN profile. All of the PEs already agree on the root node, which was statically configured. Next, let's check the mLDP database using the command shown. The top of the output contains various opaque fields, which are low-level details describing this database entry. More importantly, this is a multipoint to multipoint tree, which is comparable to a PIM bidirectional delivery mechanism. Traffic can traverse up and down the tree, which is rooted at CSR7. mLDP also supports point to multipoint trees, which is more like PIM SSM. The upstream client always points towards the root node, and there's typically only one of these. It's equivalent to an RPF neighbor in a PIM network. The replication clients are the downstream nodes, and there could be many of these. This is like an mRib outgoing interface list. Because CSR2 is a PE, its replication client is the VRF link across the NNI. Next, let's head to CSR7, which is the upstream client, to examine its database entry. As the mLDP network grows, you'll want to use more specific show commands. This is how you would query a specific state using a VPN ID we reviewed earlier. First, notice that CSR7 is aware that it is the root, which is good. As a result, there are no upstream clients from CSR7's perspective. However, there are 3 replication clients, allowing traffic to flow downstream towards routers 2, 5, and 6. Another useful command is the summary command. Let's try that next. This compresses every state into a single row, identifying the type, root, opaque, and number of clients. It's a good first step when troubleshooting a complex problem. As a final check, you can use MPLS OAM to test the health of your mLDP tree. You can run this command from any node along the path, although I recommend doing it from one of the PEs or from the root. You must specify the tree's type, root, and opaque values. That 0 at the end is used to specify the default MDT. Because there are 4 PEs within GlobalMantics, CSR7 correctly receives a response from each one. This is a good indication that core mLDP transport is functional within this AS.